All right. Hi again. Um, Today we're gonna begin some real work. Um, and we're gonna start with some mini project. All right. Um, we're gonna try the topic of course, as you have seen, is creating text. All right. I'm touching on this now because this is first, I need us to also get our hands dirty and do some actual work. And secondly, because this is one of the first things that aspiring 3D um, enthusiasts would always go to. All right. So there's that logo that you want to create an intro for. You want to create a sign or name for your small business or someone's small business, or that poster or that billboard signage or something like that, right? And you want to spice up your design with some 3D. Usually people start with 3D text. I don't know why, all right, but people always start with something 3D, with some text that is 3D. All right, so I wanted to tackle that and at the same time get our hands dirty with some of the things that work. I'm going to make a disclaimer now and say, first of all, that a lot of the techniques I use are not the only ways to do this stuff. All right, this is a 3D software packed. Maya is a 3D software packed with a load of features and many ways to do the same thing. All right, flexible. So that's one of the advantages. Obviously, is that it's flexible. You can do different things, or you can do the same thing in different ways. All right, and that may be a problem because people kind of always want the one way solution. All right, but there's always many ways to do it. So I'm saying that for people who have some knowledge of 3D, who may be um, looking at what I'm going to do and questioning why am I not using this other method. All right. Um, Sometimes they're just a simple way to do things, and because like I said, this course or class is for basic users. All right, people who are just interested in 3D. I want to do something quick. All right, so I don't want to bore you with all the details and complexities of the methods. All right, I just want to show you quick things that work and work well. All right, and so we are going to go this route. All right, we will probably try some more extreme stuff later on, or if you indicate wanting to know more in some particular area, but we will try to do something simple, something straightforward, all right, that will get you at least interested in doing stuff by yourself, exploring the software and the tools by yourself, all right. So, um, with that being said, we're going to branch a bit and talk a bit about um, vector graphics. Um, for people who are interested or who do graphic design, you probably understand what I mean by that. But vector graphics are graphics in 2D illustrative software like CorelDRAW or Illustrator. All right. Let me try and pull my Illustrator out. Okay. Like CorelDRAW or Illustrator, where you can create line graphics with the tools that those softwares present, and there's an interface, as it were, between what you can do with 2D software and 3D. All right, and so in our bid to create text, we're going to explore how to do this, starting with vector graphics. All right. Just to show you what we intend to do. Okay, so this is the Airtel logo, and we want to try and create a 3D representation of this. So we're going to try a bit of work in CorelDRAW for a bit before we go back to Maya and finish off on it there. But before I do this, because this is a bit more complex, trying to get this exact font or typeface and try and get it in 3D. And if you don't have or know this font, then it may be hard for you to get this. All right. And so we're going to talk about the alternative ways to achieve the same result. Okay. Okay. So before I show you how to create the complex logo that we're going to try and do, I'm going to show you how to do or add in normal text based on the fonts that you have on your system. All right. So as I go along, I will explain a few things about how Maya does some of the stuff it does, and then go from there. All right. So first of all, you want to come to create. All right. And if you go down the menu list, you will see text. I've explained to you before that when you see a square box beside any text, it means that there are options for what you're about to create. So we click on that box like that, and we see a new screen of text. All right, and so there are just a few things to explain. So you see text fields where you are supposed to write what it is that you want to create in 3D. And then there's a font field. We'll get back to this that shows the font you want to use. And then at the bottom you see the type of object or font, or object is the best word to use, object that you want to create to represent the font. So there's four types. There's the curve, all right, which is made up of something that we talked about yesterday. These curves, the same kinds that you can draw, all right, which means that you are going to create or start with a NURBS based curve, all right. Trim, I'll pass that because it's not important for us. Poly, for creating a polygon of that text, all right. And bevel, creates not just a flat face of the font that or the text you want to write, but also creates an edge that is beveled for that text, all right, and extrudes it a bit. So these are options to create that bevel effect, all right. So I mostly use the curves option, and because I can then define a few other things afterwards, all right? And I run into less errors because Maya can sometimes bog you down with the errors that it uh, runs into as it tries to create stuff, all right? So if I wanted to write, say, Airtel, okay, well, write that Airtel like that. Then I need to select the font that I want to use. So it opens a new window with options and shows you all the fonts that you may have in your system, and shows you a bit of a preview of what that font looks like, so you can get a sense of how it will look when you created it in software. All right, so I'm just going to pick out some one that feels close to um, what that looked like. Trying to find my Euro fonts. I can't seem to find my Euro fonts, but I can work with this. All right, so You can also select whether you just want the normal sizing, the bold or italic style of the font and the font size. All right. So I'm just going to pick something around 24. Select my bold one, right? And click OK for that. When I click create, there you can see that curves have been created for um, our text. All right, and you can notice it's reference to the origin point. Basically, almost starts just after the origin, and that's how Maya works with text or curves when it creates them. Always in reference to the origin. Of course, you can change that center the way I showed you the last class by going to modify, yeah, center pivot. Now if I do that, I move this origin from, I move the axis, the local axis of this group of curves from the center of the origin to the center of the text. All right. But, so I can do that right now, and there you see that I can move this. All right. If I want to take this to the to move, if I want to center this text along the axis of my scene, I come into a plane view. All right, I do that by pressing the space bar and I'm putting my mouse in the window, anywhere within the window that I want. So if I press space, I come out to my four window view, and then I bring my mouse to my perspective view and I press space again. It does that, so I can go through different views this way, simply by moving my mouse to anywhere into the view and pressing space. If I press space again, I return to my four panel view. So I'm back in my front plane panel view, and I want to snap to grid so that I can do this exactly along the grids. All right, so there I am. I want to place the base of this text just along this. So I may need to come out of my snapped mode so that I can do this by eyesight and try and get it to fit just right. So I think you can work with this, leaving it at the X height of the text. All right, so I come back to my perspective view again, just pressing space, moving my mouse. So here we are. All right, now to now all we have are curves, right? But we need a surface. We need to see an object, a real object, right? So how do we convert this this text curves to a surface? One of the things that we can do with NURBS curves and Maya is that we can create a surface um, within a curve. All right, so I just need to select the curves and the bounding borders of the curve, and I can create a surface from that curve. And the idea is that with no surface, all those surfaces will always be smooth, will always be straight and flat. There are no deformations along that surface. All right, so here I can do this one at a time or do them all at the same time, but I want to do this one at a time so you get it. So I select for the A, I select the outer curve like so, and then select this center curve. If I don't do that, I run the risk of just running the plane surface through without the cutout for this space. All right, so while doing this, it recognizes that there are actually two curves and only places the surface within the areas that have been selected. So I come to surface, all right, and click planar. Again, I click on my box, that means there are options. And then we have a few things that we're going to run through. Some of them you really don't need to know what they mean, all right, or do. But I'll draw your attention to this section here. It says output geometry. either as NURBS or polygons. Now, that's one of the things that I tried to explain in our last class, that um, the ability with NURBS, you can always translate. You can move from the NURBS to the polygon, alright? In Maya, you can do both actually, create one from the other, but usually it's much more, you're most likely going to want to translate NURBS to polygon because of some of the disadvantages of texturing with or painting more texturing with NURBS surfaces, alright? So I'm going to just convert this to a polygon. One of the advantages of a polygon is that I can extrude, alright? So that if I start with a flat surface, I can then push it out, alright, and create a real 3D surface, alright? So I'm going to stick to the option that I have here, polygons, alright, and then come down here and I'm selecting the type of tessellation or division that I want. I can either go with triangles or quads. Remember, we said last time that you can do a face or a polygon object is made up of n-sided faces. So in this selecting triangles means that I'm trying to create my surface out of three-sided polygons. I can select quads, which means four-sided polygons, alright? But so I'm going to just stick with triangles for now, and you have tessellation method, which just determines how it should create this how we should decide how to break up the surface. All right. For general, you simply select based on options that the NURBS curve may already have, which is that you determine based on the number of your isopalms. Isopalms are some of the dots points that make up the line that tracks a curve. All right. So you can either go with the general method, all right, or you can go with a count. A count simply gives you a number that it uses to determine how detailed the divisions are. Usually I go with this for most of my work with this because setting the value to a high value means that I can create objects that are highly detailed and thus are not easily, they don't, the word that I should use, pixelate. Or no, not pixelate. They are, because you need strong curves along these lines. Remember that we are translating or converting this NURBS curve into a polygon. And the disadvantage of polygons is that you can't always get exact, accurate curves. All right. So by adding detail, the number of counts is will determine the number of the detail level or the number of divisions that we want to put into the surface. So I'm going to start with something like, say, a count of, say, 3,000. All right, 3,000. And I'm going to just show this and what it does. If I click apply, this window does not disappear. Right, so I can still come back and re-edit. So if I do apply, you can see that we have a very dense surface that has been created. All right, let me come to this so you can see the surface here. All right, I'm selecting it. You can see how detailed it is. Now let me undo that so I can then show you. So I can show you if I set this to, say, just about 100. All right, and I click apply again. You can see the number of divisions is much less. All right, and you can see that it is the polygons in trying to calculate how to translate the curves into polygon edges. You are getting some of the edges that break out of the curve. All right, and this is what gives you text that may look blocky by the time you have extruded, right? Which means that the surface of the object does not look smooth. All right, this is a disadvantage of the polygon effect, but the way, like I've explained, to counteract that is to go for a high count, alright, so that you can create more triangles in the surface and it can help match the curvature of this area. So if I undo that again and come back and select 3000, alright, 3000, and click apply, I have a much denser surface. Alright, now let me just quickly go through and do that for the rest of these. Okay, here we are with a fully populated software, should I say, with all the surfaces having been created, alright, between the curves. Note that, as I said before, when you create objects from curves, alright, the curves maintain an influence on the object, alright, and so any change that you make to the curve usually always registers again on the object. To do that, I explained that you need to delete the history from the new object you have created. So in a case like this where the curves are on the very same line in space that the surfaces are, how do I separate the curves? One of the things that you can do in each window is that you see the show menu, and under that you see a list of all the things that you can see in the window. So in this case, I deselect NURBS curves, and that means that I won't be able to see any NURBS curves in this thing. So I deselect that, and you notice that you can't see the blue lines because they are all gone now. So I select this by holding Shift and selecting and clicking on each of them. I can select all of them like that. We'll close this. Now I come to edit, delete by type, history. Alright, so by doing that now, I deleted the history of the curves that created them. Alright, so when I select this, and I try and bring them forward now, and come back to my show and click NURBS curves, I can see that the curves are still there, but they have no link to the text anymore. So I can actually delete the curves. Alright, so I'm going to just do that. Delete. If you know you are going to still want to create the same curve again later, you can obviously keep the curves, alright, and do the same process through your surface cleaner method. Alright, so here we have surfaces that are polygons. Alright, now one of the things you can always do with polygons is extrude. So I can select all of them or select one at a time. One of the things I can do to save time on a project like this is to merge all the surfaces so that I can work with them at once instead of having to select them as separate things. So I come to my menu set, click polygon. Now under mesh, I can see that the first thing I see is the action combine, and that selects and adds as one mesh all the meshes selected. Now there may still be spaces within them as this one has, but it will not still change the fact that they are all one mesh, and because the software will always recognize them as one mesh as opposed to separate meshes. So if I do combine, you can see that our icon the colors have changed from multiple selections to only having one selection. Again, note that the local handle manipulator has returned back to the origin. Alright, it's just showing that this is a new object. Note that the input has a new node called polyunite, and that is the node that joined all the separate text as one. So that's just something to note. Alright, so now that I've done that, if I want to bring my center, my axis back to the center, I again just to modify center pivot. Right now I brought it back to the center of the object, and I can move them as one object anytime I want. Alright. So going to the next thing, which is to extrude. Showing you how to extrude will be in an earlier class. So I click extrude here, and we can see icon for that, and then I just pull that back. Alright, just pull that back, and I can add more divisions by selecting this icon over here. Right. Okay, that's wonky, but the software is hanging a bit. Let me give it time. Okay. All right. So here we are back with the created object. All right. Note again that a new node has been added, which is the poly extrude face node. All right. Now, if I click that, you can see that I almost returned to the action where I did the extrude. So I can actually still pull this again. All right. That's the power of the that you have with nodes. You can return back, like I explained, and still be able to make some edits on what you have created before, so long as you haven't done too much above that to mess with the base object. So I want to add divisions. All right, so I come to my channel box and select divisions and select say 2, or this case is 3. And I click that, you can see that I now have 3 divisions on the along the extrusion that I've made. All right, so there we go. You can see that you have text in 3D already. All right, and you just need to put color to this, and you are good to have done your first 3D 3D text. All right. Now you want to be careful that sometimes the detail that you have in this can be a lot, right, with the number of divisions. So I will always advise that just try and get away with just as little detail, as little detail as possible that does not distort the shape that you are trying to create. All right. So this is our first method of doing this. Yeah. You can see that. All right. So let me move this to the side. Okay. Move this to the side. And then I come back to our second method, which requires an illustration software like CorelDRAW or Illustrator. All right. Notice that this is what we are trying to create. Airtel, the Airtel sign. All right. So I'm just going to go back to my files and create and show you an illustrated version of this, of that text that I've created. Now you can do this, you can create this outline either by yourself, or sometimes in CorelDRAW you can always trace the image by itself that came in. All right, and try and use that to create your own logo. So I will have probably just brought the image in and come to trace bitmap, right, and do high quality image, right, and so Corel just does a quick quick trace, all right, of the object, and yeah, group that. Yeah, you have this is the image that we started. If I delete that now, I have this all vector version of it, all right, that I can now work with and do stuff with us. as I may please. Alright, so that is how I can get this. Alright, so when I do this, usually you need the outline and not the whole object, because remember we are taking this outline back to Maya and using it as an outline for the shape that we want to create. Now, if you do this cleanly and you have clean lines during this process, it will make the process that you are going to have to do in creating curves out of these lines much easier when you bring it into Maya. Alright, so we're going to hold off on this and probably um, touch on this creating this curve in our next class where we talk about shading and material. Alright, but for today we just want to bring this into Maya. Alright, and make sure we can create an exact 3D representation or replica of this logo type. Alright, so let me ungroup this so I can remove this from the initial text. Alright, so we have this. I always encourage that when you are exporting for Maya, remove any fill colors that you have and just retain the outline, because the outline is really what you need and it's really what you want Maya to be able to read and recreate. So just make sure that you only have an outline. Alright, yeah. Now save this. Go to try and delete all these ones so they don't mess with what we are trying to create. So now you want to save this as an Illustrator file. I work with CorelDRAW a lot, and my version, which is X7 version, can also export to Illustrator. But if you don't use CorelDRAW a lot and you use Illustrator, then you are perhaps even one step ahead already. So just file, save as, and select Adobe Illustrator here, just to be sure I'm only selecting, saving what I selected, and I do save. Alright, now it brings up a mini window that people using Illustrator won't have to see, but I usually select my Adobe Illustrator 8, alright, as the compatibility level that it should go for. More recent versions may not be able to work well in terms of CorelDRAW or in terms of Maya reading them, because the important thing is that Maya can read the Illustrator file. Alright, so if you save as CS6 or CS5, Maya may not be able to read those files. Alright, but if you save as 8, you are probably sure that Maya will be able to read them because of some of the legacy plugins that probably it uses to work. Alright, so I do that and then click OK, and then I get a saved version of that file in my work folder. So there it is. Alright, so if I come back to Maya now and I come back to create, remember we worked with text directly. This time we're going to work with Adobe Illustrator object file. So if I click the box, it gives me options of how it should import the Illustrator file, either as curves or as a bevel. So I click curves for now and to create, so it opens the file. Now I can find the file I'm looking for, that is etel.ai, and I click open. Alright, and there it is, the logo. Yeah. Notice how far away from the origin it is. It's because it measures the object from the lower corner of my screen. Alright, so in the lower corner of the canvas that I'm using. So in this case, that's the space between here and the object. But that doesn't matter. We can always bring everything back into line with a few clicks. Alright, so I do my centering again, snapping to grids. Alright, there, and then pull down. Let me take that off so I can use a little bit more carefully. Alright, so there we are. Trying to just match this that we have created before. I can scale it up a bit. Okay, and do that. And so we're close, not completely just yet. Okay, I think that will work for now. Alright, so come back here, and there's our curves. Now, like we've done before, this process should just be a simple, easy process instead of them. So I encourage you to probably try this also in your own software. So I select the outer curve, inner curve, and come back to my surface. Surfaces, planar, right? Count at 3000, or so I can reduce it a bit and see if it doesn't mess with the stuff, with the shape too much. Okay, I think this should be okay. Nothing is breaking out. Alright, so you can then do this for all your other objects by simply selecting. Alright, so here we are. And like I said before, you want to separate your curves from the object. I just select the faces by themselves and then try and pull that out. Alright. Now notice that, remember, like I told you before, that the curves always still control the object. So if I select this, for instance, and I pull, notice how it cracks or breaks the letter here because it's still connected to it. If I do something a little bit more, you can notice, you can see how the text is still moving, just to show that the curve is still controlling what happens. All right. Another way to note is that you can see this node, the planar trim surface. All right, and that is the one that tells this how it connects to the curve. All right, this is the function that converted the curves into surfaces, so it's still there. So all we need to do, if I select my objects now, right, and delete the history on them, saying edit, delete by type history, you can see that all those nodes that were here before, they disappear, and now the curve is not controlling the text any longer. All right, so it's pretty easy stuff there. So I can delete these curves if I want. Delete. Yeah, and here I have my logo back. All right. Now, like I did before, I joined them together, but you can obviously always do this separately. So just try this separately, extruding them so you can see how that works. Yeah. Select this to extrude. Okay. Come back to my object mode so I can just select everything. Object, extrude. Yeah. Now notice a bit of a difference between what I've showed you before, in that usually you have to select face to extrude, but you can also extrude a complete surface. In that case, you don't have to go into your face component selection mode. You can just select the object or the surface and extrude. Alright, so you can do that and then try and just make sure that they match up. Alright, so that you have something that is uniform. Uniformity is always important in stuff like this. Alright, so I'm just gonna, just since I've shown you that example, I can just continue merging the rest of them. So come back to my polygon menu, set mesh, combine, and then extrude. Yeah, there we go, and drag that. Now sometimes you may have this error where one of the objects extrudes in the other direction. Usually that's just a challenge of your normal, right? But it does not destroy anything. It's just that it's extruding in an opposite direction. Alright, so I can simply just come out of this mode. Yeah. Now notice that I've joined them together, and that becomes a problem if I just want to move just this E and move it back in line. And so you come back to mesh and you can separate. Separate does the opposite of combine. Yeah. Because it still has an information about how you merge them. You can separate based on the same divisions that existed before. So if I just separate, now it separates them back into 4 distinct objects, in which case I can select this and then move it back. Now notice that I'm not having to center before I move. Alright, even though it's not necessary, I can do it with or without that now. So here we go. You have your Airtel logo in 3D, at least the logo type. Alright, and so you can play around with this in your project for a logo of somebody that you know. Alright, as long as you know that all you are trying to do is represent something flat and trying to extrude it into 3D space, the method that I've shown you today will work. Now, just to do a quick explanation about this mark or icon that you see here. Now, this is not it's not a flat surface. It's kind of like a 3D object that has been bent or turned on its side a bit, alright, to create this. So if you create this shape the way we created the Airtel ones in our illustration software and then extrude it, you won't get something accurate. Alright, yes, you will get this shape from your front view, but as soon as you moved out of your front view and went like this, you will begin to see how it's all wrong. Alright, so in cases like this, you probably will have to build this out separately, alright, and then bend it the same way they are bent it, rotate it until you get this same look and angle that they have on it, and that can be some trial and error process. And the truth is that that is how it is done. There's no magic about it. There's no calculation that a system will do to help you to understand the exact angle that you use, because you are trying to match. So trying and trying again, trial and error is the only real way to find the same angle that they used to create this shape that they have created on this side. So we'll talk about creating this in our next class, along with beginning to talk about color and materials to create this kind of reflections and highlights that you see here. Alright, so that will be a wrap for now, but I hope that you have begun to see how you can start using this in your own projects to create logos, text, your name if you are somebody that's indulged. Alright, and so there it is. Right, take care, and until the next class.